respected officers from MeitY, colleagues from Meta. I'll mention three of them. Jan LeCun, our VP and Chief AI Scientist, Professor Manohar Kalluri, VP for AI at Meta, and Natasha Drog, Director at India Public Policy. We have a very short program today to announce collaboration between Meta and IndiaAI on two projects. The first is a GenAI Center of Excellence, and the second is a skilling project with AICTE and IIT Jodhpur. As background, last year Meta signed an MOU with IndiaAI, an independent business division of MeitY. Under this MOU, we are honored to announce the establishment of a center for generative AI called Srijan at IIT Jodhpur, and also the launch of AI for skilling and capacity building with AICTE. This partnership across both these projects will enable development of indigenous AI applications, advance skill development in AI, boost AI research that contribute to IndiaAI's vision of A, sovereign AI, and B, AI solutions for India and for the world. Based on the principles of open science and open source, ensuring that this is done in a responsible and both that the development and deployment of AI is done in a responsible fashion. To kick off this program, I would request Shri Abhishek Singh to speak on the focus of the India AI mission. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sunil, for setting the tone. And we have Secretary MeitY, who has been guiding us in all our initiatives. And on behalf of the whole of MeitY, I welcome Jan LeCun, Chief Scientist from Meta. And he is someone whom we all in the AI community have always looked up to. His talks, his work, his speeches, his tweets, all of it. And they set the tone with regard to the discourse, with regard to the way responsible AI is being developed, how open source AI is being pushed, and how we can make use of artificial intelligence in such a way that can result in a lot of benefits to mankind and humanity while being aware of the risks which are there. So that kind of approach has been the guiding light, and the work that you have done in ensuring that Meta comes with Llama 3, which is an open source tool, has really benefited the entire AI community in India, those who are working on inferencing, those who are working on AI models. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for coming here. I personally have been a big fan for you for the last so many years. So thank you. It's a pleasure to have you amongst us today. Manohar Kalluri, Vice President AI, Meta AI, who had visited us some time back, and we are all aware of the work that you do. Sunil, Natasha, welcome to all of you. And it's indeed a great opportunity to welcome our Chairman AICTE, Mr. Sitaram, Dr. TG Sitaram, and Professor Mayank Vatsa from IIT Jodhpur. And it's a fortune moment that today the two MOUs, the two initiatives that we are launching, go straight into the overall objective that we have of India AI mission, which was approved by the government in March this year with an investment of almost $1.2 billion, which seeks to democratize AI, which seeks to ensure the benefits of AI reach each and everyone. We have had a long history of digital public infrastructure building using technologies for improving access to services, and with AI coming in and with the power of AI coming in, with the ability to enable voice enabled services, with the ability to make services more specific for people who need it, it will add a lot of value to that. So it's in the right context that IIT Jodhpur is setting up Srijan, the Center for Excellence of Gen AI. We all are users of GenAI, but if we are able to set up such a center with support from Meta and support from India AI mission towards the research scholars who will be working on that, GenAI solutions developed in India can be deployed, which will be more context specific, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about it in the days to come. It's directly related to our objectives of India AI mission, which the government is approved. Skilling Project with the AICTE. AICTE is the premier institution which ensures the technical education across India, and the partnership with AICTE and Meta, which resulted in training more than 100,000 students in LLMs and in developing AI-based solutions, is directly part of the India AI Future Skills vertical of India AI mission. And I'm sure this partnership will help us strengthen our capacity that we have. We are long regarded as a country which has a very strong AI skilled workforce. But in order to retain our advantage, it's important that we give the right tools and training to all our students so that they are able to do that. So both these initiatives will contribute directly to the objectives of India AI mission, and I thank Meta for that. Meta has been a good partner with us in many of our previous initiatives also. And I must mention that during COVID-19, when we built the MyGov chatbot on WhatsApp, it immediately became one of the world's largest followed chatbot, and it resulted in a lot of information dissemination across India when we're dealing with the pandemic. So once again, thanks and gratitude to the Meta team for doing this. And I'm sure the partnership that we are building today, the initiative that we are launching today, is just a starting step, and there will be many more initiatives that we can work together to democratize AI, to ensure that we are able to leverage the power that exists in our academic institutions and our research community, and build products that can not only be useful for India but for the entire world. So once again, thank you all, and hope that the two key pillars that we are addressing today as part of India AI mission will contribute to strengthening our overall AI strategy today. So yes,
thank you so much, sir, for those comments. Before we hear from Professor T.G. Sitaram, I want to take a minute to express our deepest gratitude from all the people at Meta here to Madam Kavita Bhatia ji. She's the CEO of the India AI mission, but that's a sort of erroneous way of describing her. She has been leading the AI work at the ministry for many, many years now. And thanks to her guidance and leadership, we have been able to work with the ministry, and also to mention one of her colleagues, Sushil Jangid, and to thank him for all his support. Now we shall hear from Professor T.G. Sitaram, Chairman of AICTE. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So very good morning to all of you. Sri Krishnan, Secretary MIT, Sri Abhishek Singh, Additional Secretary MIT, and Sunil Abraham from Meta, India, Yon Liu Kun, Vice President and Chief AI Scientist at Meta, and all the officers of MIT, and as well as the team from Meta. So very good morning to all of you. I'm very happy to be part of this launch of Meta IndiaAI collaboration for the Generative AI CoE as well as the Skill India project. The AICTE, All India Council for Technical Education, is tying up with Meta in presence of the Secretary on YuvaAI, AI for skilling and capacity building. For those who do not know much about AICTE, I will tell you All India Council for Technical Education is a regulatory body, started in 1987, and large number of engineering colleges started mushrooming in India. So today, with almost more than 35 years of existence, AICTE administers close to about 14,000 institutions, including both undergraduate as well as postgraduate programs in the country, and close to about 1 crore students, almost 100 lakh students at any time in engineering colleges across the country. We have about 3,600 engineering colleges, 2,500 diploma institutions, and standalone management institutions where they offer the MBA programs. So AI, for AICTE is not a new term, because I was telling you, I was the director of IIT Guwahati when a philanthropist came to me saying that I would like to start a school of data science and artificial intelligence. This was in 2021. Okay, and actually on 3rd of December, this December, we are putting a foundation stone to a new building which we are building at IIT Guwahati. When he came, I put it to my colleagues in computer science, being the director. They were all debating whether it is a difference than computer science or data science is different. So that was the story of 2021. When I joined here in 2022, after 3.5 years, first thing I came to know, thousands of engineering colleges already offering a BTech program 4-year in data science and artificial intelligence. By 2021, they had graduated lakhs of students with a BTech in data science and artificial intelligence. So that's the way we can look at it. That's why today India is the leader in AI. It still have to be shown because we need to use our data and our tools, and people should create here rather than everybody going to America and doing the same thing. So we can confidently say today we have, as an engineering, regulator, we are very confident to say we have delivered engineering and management education, not just for India, to the whole world. Because you walk into any company, anywhere in the world, an Indian with an undergraduate degree from India has to come out, including all my secretaries. That's the beauty part of it. Anyway, coming back to some of the activities of AICTE, what we have done in the AI. So promoting emerging technologies with the rapid advancement technology, what we have done is AICTE advocates for the promotion of all the emerging technologies, not only AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, Internet of Things. So we had started offering minor degree program as early as 2017. So from there onwards, a lot of students who are doing in electronics, computer science, and even other areas have a minor degree with 16 to 18 credits in these areas of data science, artificial intelligence. We have a very defined curriculum developed jointly by both the industry as well as academia together. And similarly, we have done recently, I think the secretary will watch for it, that for semiconductors, we have developed the state-of-the-art model curriculum developed by industry collaboration. Today, 400 engineering colleges are offering BTech in VLSI. That means a 4-year degree program. Already kids are already in the 3rd year now. So 15,000 graduates will come out in 2 years of time in semiconductor alone. So coming to yesterday itself, NVIDIA was here in Mumbai. It's a big news yesterday. So coming to that, AICTE also has taken a challenge to set up 500 Center for Excellence of Engineering Colleges jointly with Juniper Networks. This is Juniper AI-driven campus center of excellence. At 500 institutions, we are setting up COEs. Okay, that is one other initiative. So this program, basically, institution will gain access to valuable resources and expertise that will enhance their academic and technological standing. So Juniper Networks, being a international company, but the startup, the founder is actually from IIT Kharagpur, an Indian, happens to be an Indian. So it's again, so I say nowadays, wherever I go, AI, Honorable Prime Minister says when he went to America and India, bye-bye. But here, it is all Indian. Even there also, most of them are Indians also. So AI represents all Indian with these few words. So we are actually offering a minor degree courses in emerging technologies like AI, IoT, blockchain. And the skilling courses are also, a lot of skill courses are also here tied up. We have a NEET program, National Education Alliance for Technology, where more than 100 edutech companies are offering courses through the NEET program to all our education institutions. And a lot of good courses are also being developed on SWAYAM and SWAYAM Plus, which is also accessible to a large number of. SWAYAM and SWAYAM Plus are one of the largest MOOCs platform in the world. Okay, they have very state-of-the-art courses which students can do self-learning, and assessment also happens online. So these are some of the initiatives. So we have also launched recently digital skilling initiative to upskill 1 crore students and faculty in AI. So that's what you are talking about. One other very initiative we made a presentation to MIT recently is Anuvadini tool. We have started a Section 8 company called Anuvadini Foundation, which actually does a translation and a lot of AI related work. And this tool is basically a deep learning AI tool for Indian language translation tool. It is an in-house language translation tool developed at AICTE. More than 150 people are working on this project at AICTE to translate books, text and audio, and even videos in 14 different languages. We have actually put up the e-Kumbh. Kumbh means a repository which has textbooks of engineering and diploma programs in the 14 different languages. And I'm very happy to tell you some of these courses like on Python in Odia language is the highest downloaded book across the world. That clearly says 65 countries have downloaded the Odia book and Python programming. So these are some of the initiatives AICTE is working, and we have completely transformed everything, our approval process, regulatory, everything digital online. So with these few introductions, I'm very happy to be there to be part of this integrating AI in education. And I think we are the force to reckon with because large number of aspiring students are there in India. I think this is a good time. As our Prime Minister says, it's Amrit Kal. So I hope we will make use of this using the technological shift. So we can bring revolutionary change which can offer to the whole world from here. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Professor Sitaram. Some of those numbers you mentioned are indeed mind-boggling. We shall now hear from Professor Mayank Vats, who has been working, one of India's leading AI scientists and who has been working on AI for many years, perhaps decades before it became fashionable. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Sunil. So welcome, Jan, to India. Thank you, Secretary Krishnanji and Abhishekji and Karta ma'am for supporting this whole initiative. So I'll start with a very anecdotal example from my PhD days. So when I joined my PhD in US, my advisor asked me to work on support vector machines. And I convinced him that let me work on neural networks because Jan is actually making presentations at conferences. Right? And I did actually something during my PhD on neural networks.
I should apologize to your advisor.
Yeah, and fast forward, when I became faculty back in India here, when I joined here in India, my PhD student came and said, hey, Jeffrey Hint and Jan LeCun are actually talking something called as deep learning. I said, okay, explain me. And when he explained, I said, no, this is actually deep learning. This is neural networks, which Jan LeCun had been like, I've worked on neural networks. I have taken all the inspirations from his work. And this is neural network only. So he convinced me, let's call it as a deep learning. And I'm really proud that today, actually, you are here when we are talking about setting up the center on generative AI in India. So I'm really glad and really proud that I'm in this particular domain. And then we take inspirations from you and Hinton and all. The way we are calling our center is Srijan. Srijan means creation. And generative AI is all about creation. So we are hoping that with the setup of this particular center jointly with Meta and MIT, we hope to actually create an ecosystem which can instigate the research in this particular domain further so that we Indians can be the developers of generative AI rather than only users of generative AI. So with that focus, we are hoping with my colleagues over here, we are hoping that we'll take strides, support from MIT and Meta both. We have had a long relationship with Meta in past, worked with Tal Haster and Omkar Parkhi and Mano. For the long time, we have been working closely, publishing joint papers. I hope to take that up to the next level with the help of this particular center. In this whole process, I would also like to thank Prachi and Sunil for steering us in the right direction so that we actually reach where we are today. Also thank Sushil for his hard work for putting us together here, and then thank you, Mr. Krishnan, for all his support throughout. So looking forward to more work jointly with Meta.
Thank you, Professor Vats. We shall now hear from Jan. Jan will be talking about the future of AI. Over to you, Jan.
So first of all, thank you for receiving us here and having a chance to exchange with you. My stay in India so far has been a whirlwind tour, 4 different cities, and very intense program. But what I've seen is the enthusiasm of the community here in India, from young people particularly, for AI. I get stopped in random places in hotel lobby by people who come to me and say, just recognize me and say, first, I want to take a picture with you. And second, I founded a startup based on Llama 3, and we're making, $1 million ARR, and this is thanks to you, and so thank you. So I found it really humbling, but that tells you sort of the density of excitement and talent in India for AI. It's of course exciting for everyone, but it seems to me that India, because of in part its the technical education system, is in a very favorable position to take advantage of it. So let me talk a little bit about the future of AI from the technical point of view first, and then from the more sort of infrastructure or organization point of view. So the first thing is that the type of models that we are that the entire world seems to be excited about today is not the be-all, end-all. There is going to be other revolutions in AI over the next few years, systems that are going to be very different in terms of architecture from LLMs. So LLMs are good at manipulating language, but what we've found over the last 6 or 7 years is that they're not good at all, actually, at dealing with real world video, audio, natural signals. And so the result of this is that the AI systems that we have today are not very good at understanding the real world. And that explains why we have LLMs that can pass the bar exam and produce essays and things like this, but we still don't have self-driving cars and domestic robots, tasks that children or adolescents can learn in a few hours of practice. So that tells you we're missing something big. The sort of quantitative reason for this is simple to understand. The biggest LLMs today are trained with essentially all the publicly available text on the internet, plus some licensed data that's filtered down. But in the end, they're trained on the order of 20 trillion tokens. A token is typically 3 bytes, so that's 6 10 to the 13 bytes. Round this up to 10 to the 14 bytes. Okay, that's an enormous amount of data. Any of us would take a few 100,000 years to read through this. And so at first, you could think that systems that are trained with that data, should be very smart because they're trained on so much knowledge. But in fact, when you look at how much data gets to the human brain in the first 4 years of life, it's about the same number. You put a number on how much information goes to the brain per second through vision, and it's about 2 megabytes per second, about 1 byte per second per optic nerve fiber, and we have 2 million of them. Over the course of 4 years, a child has been awake a total of about 16,000 hours. So do the arithmetics, and you get a number that's roughly 10 to the 14 bytes. So in 4 years, a child has seen as much data as the biggest LLMs of today. And that tells you that we're not going to get to really smart systems at the level of human intelligence unless they are able to train from video, learn how the world works by watching it, essentially, and by interacting in it. We're not going to get to that level by just training on text. So that's going to be a revolution over the next few years in AI. This is what I'm personally working on, and a lot of my colleagues at FAIR, which is the Fundamental AI Research Lab at Meta, we're working on that next revolution. So AI is going to change a lot over the next few years. But one thing that we're pretty certain of is 2 things. First, the amount of data that we're going to need to train those systems to get to a particular level of intelligence is going to decrease, but the overall amount of data that we'll want to use to train those systems is going to increase. So the thirst for data to train those systems is not going to come down. That's the first point. The second point is the amount of computational resources needed to train them is not going to come down either. Because the same way nature abhors a vacuum, computer scientists abhors unused computational resources and memory. So whatever is available is going to get used. And also because, if we try to relate the computational power of the biggest GPU clusters we have today compared to the computational power of the human brain, we're still way below. So, we're going to need more computation, more data. What that means is that the cost of training an AI system today, an LLM, is ballooning. It's growing really quickly. Mano is closer to that issue than I am. He can tell you everything about it, but there is a large cost to collecting the data, even though most of it is public. You need to filter it, so to use high quality data. Then there is the cost of the computing infrastructure to train it. A typical cluster that makes economical sense today is a cluster with 16,000 GPUs, and in terms of capital expense, that's between 1 and 2 billion, depending on how you build it. And operational expense, of course, is enormous. So that is the motivation behind the enormous amounts of investments that some companies and governments are making. Then there is the expense of fine-tuning those systems so that they actually can be useful, answering questions that are common, being safe, not producing nonsense, and etc. And that the cost of that post-training phase also is ballooning. That basically involves a lot of human labor, of playing with the system, telling it what the correct answers are, what the incorrect answers are, and then having it generate multiple answers. So that's ballooning. So the future I'm seeing, if we project ourselves several years in the future, I think the future is one in which the cost of training foundation models is still going to increase, and that cost is not going to be bearable by a single entity, be it Meta or Google or OpenAI, Microsoft. It's going to have to be distributed, and it's going to have to be distributed not because of cost, but because the access to data needs to be more encompassing and wider. No single entity can collect data in all the languages in the world and have enough data to basically capture all the linguistic diversity, cultural diversity, differences in value systems, etc., across the world, right? So we those systems which will eventually constitute a repository of all human knowledge, will need to be trained with all human knowledge. And most of that knowledge is not going to be easily transferable to a single entity in Silicon Valley. So what that means is that the future is one in which we train open source platforms in a distributed manner, perhaps using local data without actually copying that data to a centralized location where the training is performed. And there are technical challenges to this, but we think they are solvable. So basically, distributed training where multiple clusters train on their own local data, but those systems basically exchange parameter vectors and arrive at a consensus so that the final system is equivalent to having been trained on the entire data at once and constitute the repository of all human knowledge. Now, this only works if those platforms are open source, right? We cannot do this. The training code has to be shared. The training data does not need to be shared, which is interesting. But certainly the training code needs to be shared. Probably the hardware infrastructure needs to be somewhat shared, although there could be some heterogeneity there. And certainly the resulting engines, because they will have contributions for everyone, will belong to everyone. Okay. Now, this is a type of strategy that Meta is very familiar with. To give you an example, a recent example, most of research and development in AI today is done with PyTorch, which is a tool for training AI deep learning systems. PyTorch was built at Meta and open sourced, and then got considerable amounts of contributions from the research and development community and industry. And eventually, a couple of years ago, Meta decided to transfer the ownership of PyTorch to the Linux Foundation. So Meta does not own the code anymore. Meta is still the main contributor to it, but it's basically a collaborative process now, and it's owned by the Linux Foundation, like Linux, like other platforms, open source platforms that are owned. So this is really a philosophy that, frankly, is the reason why I work at Meta and not at other companies. It's because of this openness, because I think the challenges of developing the next generation AI systems is requires expertise and contributions from the entire research and development community across the world. And India has a very important role to play there. So that's my first point. I think we see a future where AI is widely available, is accessible to a very wide population through smartphones, perhaps initially, eventually smart glasses like the one I'm wearing right now, that you can talk to. Right now, you can talk to those glasses in a number of different languages, but what we like eventually, and we have the technology for this basically, at least at the prototype level, we'd like those glasses to understand all 700 languages and dialects in India. It's a tall order, okay? It's not going to be simple. But we do have speech recognition systems now that can, and speech translation system that can translate directly from speech to speech without going through text. And that can be applied to languages that are not written, that don't have a script. So it's probably important for a lot of regions in the world, but particularly India and Africa, Indonesia, or even Europe, to preserve local languages that are disappearing, essentially. So that future with where everyone is going to walk around with AI assistants residing in their smart glasses that they can talk to at all times and will help them solve problems in their daily lives. I think will amplify human intelligence, and that's a very bright future. I think that we can envision, that we can aspire to building. Now, the distributed infrastructure and open source world that I'm describing, I'm not talking about an official meta policy yet, but I'm talking about a kind of inevitable trend that I see, a similar trend that can be predicted from what happened in the world of operating system, where the entire world runs on Linux, right? Except for a few desktops, basically Windows and Mac, but the rest just runs on Linux. The entire infrastructure of the internet, the infrastructure of the mobile communication system, every embedded device in your car and everything runs on Linux. And the reason is because open source platforms are more flexible, cheaper, safer, more secure, more eyeballs, fixing potential bugs. I think it's the same thing for AI. AI is going to become a sort of common infrastructure for shared across the world, and we need that to be done in an open fashion. Okay, so now India has a bunch of very good advantages, starts from a good place, because I think the most difficult obstacle to a future where India can contribute significantly to this future is education. And India has a wonderful technical education system. Thank you. At least at the undergraduate level for now. And India certainly has the culture in which young people feel that they can contribute. And as I told you earlier, I see that everywhere I go. So those are the things that are difficult to build from scratch, and you already have that. Now, what's missing is computing infrastructure that is available to researchers, which a lot of countries are struggling to build at the moment, including the US. By the way, there is no such thing in the US. So universities are basically struggling to just come up with enough funds to have enough GPUs to do meaningful research. I tell students today, graduate students starting a PhD or something, I tell them, do not work on LLM. There's no point for you working on LLMs, because you don't have the computing infrastructure, and you're competing with enormous groups in industry that have hundreds of engineers and scientists and tens of thousands of GPUs. There's no way you can contribute anything. Just come up with new ideas and new paradigms. That's where you can contribute. And that leads me to the other thing where I think perhaps there is some actions that can be done within India to sort of lift the aspiration of the youth to make significant contributions in research. And it's the graduate level studies and research, not just in academia, because there is good research in academia in India, but there is very little research in industry. And by the way, this is not unique to India. It's true of Europe as well. The number of ambitious research labs in industry that actually produce significant publications and contribute to the world can be counted on fingers of one hand. It's basically Meta, Google, Microsoft, and that's pretty much it. The other ones are much smaller. There is some in other parts of the world than North America, but it's very small. And I think there needs to be a culture in industry in India, but also in Europe, where industry is more ambitious, in its goals, and is willing to invest in sort of more long-term project. And the effect of this would be that it will lift the aspiration and spirit of young students who then can realize that first they could do a PhD in India and stay in India because it will give them a prospect for a career, which currently is only either abroad or in academia. And academia is not for everyone, right? A lot of people are good, but basically don't have prospects for a good career as research scientists in industry in their own country. It was my case in France 40 years ago. And so basically promoting research in industry in some way, perhaps programs that allow PhD students to do PhD in residence in industry. We have such a program at Meta in France, which is absolutely spectacular. It's produced enormous good for the ecosystem in Paris, but also scientific production that has had a big impact. And it's really sort of lifted the entire ecosystem in Paris. Paris is now probably the largest center for kind of AI startups and research outside of the US. So I think there are things that can be done there, and India can make great contributions, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard, thank you, Jan. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from three professors speaking one after the other. We're now going to hear from Secretary S. Krishnan. Whenever I hear to listen to Secretary speaking, I always think that the professor is speaking. So maybe if Secretary was not in government, maybe he would have been in academia. Secretary's got a special address on how India is going to become a global AI powerhouse. Over to you, Secretary.
Thank you, Sunil. I don't think I ever had academic ambitions, and technology was the farthest thing academically that I ever looked at. So all this is new to me. So I'm as much a student as anybody else is. But the one thing that I do understand after so many years in government and policy making is that it's important to be a supporter of new ideas, and it's important to take innovation forward, because that's the way society changes, and that's the way governance can contribute to societal change. And in that sense, AI really offers the opportunity for a country like India to leapfrog and develop, and which is why it's important that the government supports the effort here, ensures that all parties come together in a way, offers a platform where different people can come together to contribute. And that is what the India AI mission is all about as well. And how can we bring in the infrastructure in terms of compute, what we can contribute there? How can we contribute towards developing new models, foundational models? And it's very interesting from the point that you made about, LLMs may not be the end all of it. When we were designing the AI mission, there was a specific, when we were writing the cabinet note, actually, this was one of the points we thought about very carefully. And we said, we are not going to talk about an LLM, we are going to talk about a large multimodal model. So it could be anything. It could be, like you said, speech, text, and speech, images, videos. All of that needs to be studied. So I'm glad that my colleagues who contributed to that exercise at that point thought of this particular aspect as well, and that we realized. And in fact, we are also, even as we speak, amongst the 7 pillars that India is looking at currently, The pillar which relates to development of a foundational model is the one which is going a little slower because we want to understand what is happening in the rest of the technology space and figure out what would be the best way to go forward. And your thoughts and ideas on that aspect, I think, were very, very helpful and supportive of the way that India needs to go forward. The other element of it, and I think you emphasized the one thing, many of us on this side of the table were also at the NVIDIA event in Mumbai yesterday. So one of the things that we pick up from all of this is that infrastructure is critical. The costs are not going to come down there. And that is something that we need to work on. And as a government, we need to provide for it. And there again, the point that you make that access to that kind of compute infrastructure is not widely available anywhere in the world. And that is something that we need to work on, is an important takeaway for us from this particular interaction. And the case that you made for open source, I think it's a very interesting way of approaching it, saying that's the only way of going forward, as opposed to looking at it from an ethical or a moral dimension, but to look at it as a necessity, I think is critical. And drawing from the Linux example and why open source works there and how it can work in this space, again, is a very key thought. On the I think the emphasis in terms of the various other aspects that you talked about, particularly in terms of improving the space for graduate level studies and research in industry. In the space of graduate level studies, and particularly for AI, I think the India AI mission specifically looks at that aspect in terms of supporting more master's programs and supporting more PhD programs in that aspect across eligible institutions, and it can make hopefully a significant difference. And the other aspect in which we believe needs to be very important, and that's something that METI itself can't necessarily do, but as the representative of AICTE and of higher education, the possibility of actually having higher education, possibility of teaching people about AI and its applications in different disciplines, whether it is in the sciences, whether it is in technology and engineering courses of different kinds, or even if it's in any other program, possibly even something like art history. And, what is it that AI can do for that is something which, again, is important across education. And that is something which was highlighted by Dr. Sitaram as well, and we would love to take that forward. Research in industry is something which the government is now focusing on specifically. This ministry, of course, has a fairly reasonably sized research budget through which we support a number of institutions, including IITs, and even under the India AI mission, we do that. But more than that, the Government of India has recently announced two initiatives. One is called the National Research Fund, and another is a separate fund which will support actually research in industry and more industry and academia collaboration. And that's a fairly substantial funding, which, not necessarily METI, but other ministries are talking to industry to put together so that we can go forward. So in some ways, I think your talk today has been very gratifying to us, saying that in some of these areas, we're really on the right track. But we also realize that there's so much more to be done. I think the key thing here is that, sometimes I was reading that the West is much more concerned about the risks that AI poses because of the nature of jobs that they already have. Now, India, fortunately, doesn't have so many jobs in the organized sector, so many office jobs and so on to lose as yet. So it's possible with the youth and with such a large young population to actually pivot in a way that we literally sort of become a back office for AI for the world in terms of a pipeline of human resources, and more than even a pipeline of human resources, getting a lot of it done in India. When you're talking about, a kind of a decentralized sort of model where the actual training takes place in a decentralized way, and it's the codes which need to be shared, and the data resides where it does. I think the potential, especially in India, and given the kind of data we have and the complexity of the data that we can actually produce, seems like a wonderful opportunity for which the country has to really work. The idea of PhD in residence in industry, I'm sure, is something that would really appeal to AICTE and others. And thank you very much for the set of ideas that you mentioned here today. It helps us in navigating policy in today's world. To be very honest, more than even making a policy and driving the policy, it's important that we make a broader policy and a broader strategy, and be ready to pivot based on how things change. And in spaces like AI, it keeps changing all the time. In the last 1 year that I've been doing this job, it's changed so many times, and we've had to kind of be very nimble and flexible to pivot around various points of this. And I think most of our policy making abilities, or most of our policy making way of trying to, people liken making policy to making sausages, and that it's a dirty job. But then you see, the point is we have to kind of keep doing this all the time to pivot around what the newer challenges which keep coming up are. And we have to keep our wits about us to get around that. And speaking with people of such eminence and people with such knowledge about that particular emerging technology really helps us understand what we need to do to stay nimble and flexible. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Secretary Krishnan, for your special address. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Jan, Manohar, Shivnath, Natasha, Sachi, Shivang, and other colleagues from Meta, we would like to thank and express our deepest gratitude to Shri S. Krishnan ji, Shri Abhishek Singh ji, Shri Sushil Pal ji, Shri Sanket Bonwe ji, Madam Kavita Bhatia ji, Professor T.G. Sitaraman, and Professor Mayank Vats for being part of this program. And we look forward to taking both these projects towards their ambitious goals. And with that, I bring this program to its close. I would request everybody to stay behind for a few minutes to take already now.